What's up, design family, and welcome back to another episode of Fittdesign TV. So glad to have you back on the channel. On today's episode, we have a brand new design video for you, especially for you young fashion designers. On today's episode, we'll be looking at how to actually develop your own personal style and taste as a designer. This is a little bit of a complicated process in the sense of you just need to do it over a repetition of time. But there's 4 key principles that I've personally implemented into my own design philosophy. And these are sort of things that I figured out along the way through trial and error. But on today's episode, I'll be giving you guys these 4 key principles and these core 4 key philosophies that you can actually look at and begin to implement into your own design workflow. That way, you can have a better understanding of what your design style is and how to consistently implement it project in, project out. What's up, design family, and welcome to Fittdesign TV. So glad to have you here. On this channel, we discuss all things sports fashion, graphic design, manufacturing, and technology. We'll discuss key topics, answer pressing questions, and provide actionable steps on starting your own product line. If you're interested in any of the above topics, stick around. You're in for a good one. So what are these 4 key principles? Well, we can consider them as the 4 P's, and what they are the personality that you bring to your design aesthetic, the passion that you have for what you do, and we'll outline what that means more in a bit. Ultimately also what process you use, so how your workflow is structured, and lastly the patience that you can bring to your design style and aesthetic. And we'll start off with number 1, which is your personality. It's absolutely important when you're developing your own style to truly understand yourself. And obviously when you're a younger designer, you're consistently developing your personality. But even through the journey that I've been through over the last 10 years, over the last 5 years as a designer, I've sort of understood that I have my personality. I almost have this dual split personality. On the one side, I have a very structured and rigorous side to myself, which is very clean cut. It's very minimal. It's very to the point and straightforward. And on the other side, a little bit more hidden is a much wilder and creative side. And I always try to mix both of these 2 aspects of my personality into everything that I do. So all of my designs tend to have a element. When you first see them initially, they have this strong element of familiarity, of straightforwardness, of minimalism, of functionality. But everything is designed in a aesthetic way, in a way that brings beauty to what I'm designing, whether it's a pair of cargo pants or it's a high-end performance t-shirt with a functional finish. Every single design that I have has this dual split personality where on the surface it looks sleek, sharp, and modern, and sort of on the back end it has this wildness to it that is super understated. But in general, I always like to mix and match those 2 things. This has come by understanding my personality. Take a moment to sort of characterize yourself. Look at who you are and try to see how who you are translates directly into the creative work you output. Take the time and do this. I know it may seem a little bit lackluster, or in general, it might seem as if this is not something worth pursuing, but believe me, what you bring to the table is unique to you. So why not lean fully inwards into what's unique to you? Number 2, when it comes to developing and actually defining your own style, is to understand the passion that you have behind your work. Passion is strongly related to a sense of purpose. For me personally, when I look at my work, I look at more than just the fact that I'm getting paid to design. I look at the fact that I'm potentially revolutionizing an industry of fashion in a way that hasn't been done before. This gives me a tremendous amount of purpose, and that passion actually seeps into every single nook and cranny of the work that I do. By bringing in this digital workflow that we've done at Fittdesign over the last 5 years, we've created an end-to-end design, development, and production scale that is extremely efficient in terms of time, speed, resources, energy, and the finished result is always 110% above what our clients expect it to be. So my passion there is to grow that idea, to grow that philosophy, to continuously find new ways to innovate within this workflow and even outside of it. But that is where my passion comes from. And when you look at my design style, you look at how I create products, how I structure products, how I structure collections for our clients, it always has this passion behind it because I know that every single design that I make is a stepping stone towards solidifying this overall passion of mine. There's a bigger image there, and with every single creative element that you make, it should be working towards structuring your larger passion. Number 3 is your process. And again, your process has such a strong sense of like actual impact in terms of what aesthetic your finished designs take on. Many people don't actually consider what their process is. They sort of approach every single design project in a lackluster way, in a way that's unfocused and undisciplined. And though there may be something to say towards having a little bit more of a wilder approach in the beginning, just so that you're not limiting yourself creatively, there is something to be said about being able to fall back on a structured path, a structured process. For me personally, my process is everything. I'm able always to take a design from point A to point Z by religiously following my process. I always start off every single design interaction by actually having a questionnaire. I have my clients fill out a questionnaire. Why do I do this? Well, it gives me key pieces of information that I need to know regarding core elements that need to be implemented into the design. And then I'll take those items and I'll sort of outline them, I'll bullet point them, and then I'll begin to implement them into a very rough sketch. I always start off with a sketch. I start off with something that is like pottery. I start off with something that's very rough. I haven't molded it yet. And step by step, I begin to mold it. I begin to allow it to take shape. I do this so that I can get most of my ideas out initially. I don't focus too much on perfectionism. I focus on just getting the core idea out and beginning to iterate. When I iterate, then I go into my process, which is my 3D prototyping. I need to see the 3D. I need to be able to see my design in full angles. This gives me a stronger sense of how my design is actually implementing from a flat 2D sketch into a finished 3D product. Right? By actually implementing this step, I'm creating a more accurate prototype. I have more of a visual representation of what my finished garment might look like. And then from there, I'll actually go ahead and create a full tech pack. This is such an essential part of actually creating the final design, because where most designers may actually implement a 3D model into their workflow, obviously this is becoming much more commonplace. By creating a tech pack, I'm also starting to think about the technical aspects of the design. I'm thinking about the fabrics. I'm thinking about the trims. I'm thinking about the construction techniques. I'm thinking about a lot of the elements that most designers don't spend the time to think about. The technical aspect has such a huge impact in terms of how your finished design is represented. So this is personally my process. And a lot of my design work is actually a direct manifestation of that. Last, but definitely not least, when it comes to defining your own design style, is the idea of patience. And patience is such an integral part of actually designing anything. Your style is directly correlated to how patient you are with the process you've created. If you approach every single design project with an expectation that it should be done in X amount of time, or you get frustrated quickly and you quit, honestly, you never give yourself enough time to actually manifest your design aesthetic in the finished product. Things like this take time. I use the analogy of pottery. When you start, it's the same potter's hands that's creating vase A and vase B. But if vase A actually doesn't end up coming to fruition because potter A gets extremely frustrated and doesn't give himself the opportunity to finish the product, doesn't trust in the process, well, the finished result is not going to be a proper manifestation of his design aesthetic. Versus potter B, who's actually taking the time, is going through the trials and tribulations, is being patient with the idea that mistakes happen, but by trusting the process, by giving it time, by actually consistently implementing his design aesthetic, that the finished result is actually going to be a direct manifestation of his design. Well, that's the difference, and that's what patience has to do with your design aesthetic. Make sure you're giving everything its due time, and make sure that you're trusting in the long-term process. At the end of the day, design is not an overnight thing. It can be, and sometimes you get these spurts of immense motivation, inspiration, and other times you're left banging your head on the wall trying to figure it all out. This is just a natural part of the human experience, of the designer experience, so come to terms with it. To recap quickly, we looked at the 4 core P's when it comes to how to define and actually establish your own design style and aesthetic. And they were your personality, 2, the passion you bring to the project, 3, the process and how you implement it, and 4, the tremendous amount of patience that you actually bring to every single interaction. Guys, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. I know for a lot of young designers, there's a struggle out there to really understand who they are and what unique value they bring to the table. Understand that just as you have a beautiful wine that ages gracefully over time, Your design aesthetic, your design style is honed by multiple repetitions, by giving yourself the time necessary to actually grow into it, by actually allowing yourself to figure things out, by actually allowing yourself to make mistakes, and ultimately by allowing yourself to take the necessary steps forward and trusting in the long-term process. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider smashing a massive thumbs up. It really does help us out on the channel. Also, consider subscribing to this channel if you haven't done so already. Again, we'd love to see you consistently on here. We read every single comment and we always appreciate it. And if you guys would like to schedule a one-on-one consultation with me to discuss your own designs, or let's just say you're looking to make your own fashion brand and you're unsure of how to do so, well, check the link in the description. I hold private one-on-one consultations with limited slots every single week. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Fittdesign TV. Until next week's episode, stay awesome.